Hello and welcome back to another cooking session together. Now we all need a bit of cheering up in these difficult days, don't we? And I don't know anything that cheers me up more than a lovely cream tea. So together we're going to make some simple and beautiful scones. It's very easy and you can literally get this done in 20 minutes. Self-raising flour, unsalted butter, or you can use margarine, a little bit of milk, a little bit of sugar. That's it. Right, let's get going. Okay, so I've measured out 160 grams of self-raising flour here. This should make about 4 medium-sized scones. And here is just a quarter of that, in other words 40 grams of the butter, which I'm just going to chop into little chunks and put into the flour. So it's basically a quarter butter to flour. And then what you want to do is start rubbing the butter into the flour, just with your fingertips like this. Get a nice lot of air into it as you do so. And basically we just want to get all these lumps of butter coated with flour and broken down until the whole bowlful becomes like breadcrumbs. Resist the temptation to use the palms of your hands, because those are the hottest parts of your hands. You want to keep everything quite cool and airy at this point. Okay, now I've just been doing this for 2 or 3 minutes and you can see it's starting to look all nice and crumbly, and there's no big lumps of butter left. Now I'm going to add some sugar. I've just got about 30 grams of sugar here, which is about 1.5 spoonfuls. And I'm just going to gently mix them in with my hands like that. And now it's time to add the liquid. Now you can just make this with milk, but I like to add just a teaspoon of plain natural yogurt into the milk as well, because it gives it a little bit of extra acidity, which helps the self-raising flour to rise nicely. Now I've got 30 millilitres of milk here. That should be enough. And when we start adding the liquid, the key is you don't want to use your fingers too much at all. So I'm just going to use an ordinary knife. I'm going to add that in and just stir it round. And I'll add it all in, just that 30 millilitres plus a bit of yogurt. And I'm just going to stir it round and round with the knife like this and start to bring it together until it looks a bit more crumbly like that. You want to avoid the temptation to add too much liquid. You can always add a bit more, but once you've added it, you can't take it out. Once it's reached that stage, I can squeeze it together and it comes together in a little ball like that. And looking at that, I might need a little bit more liquid, so I'm just going to get a bit more milk. Here we are, just a splash more milk, really just a dribble, because I don't want it to get too sloshy, otherwise the scones themselves get rather tough. There we are, that's more like it. Now I can just squash it gently with my hand, bring it out onto the board. Now, you remember when we made bread, we had to do a lot of kneading. This is the very opposite. You don't want to knead this at all, you just want to handle it enough to bring it together. That way you get a nice, soft, light scone So I've really touched that very little. Now what I'm going to do, you could roll it, but I just squash it with my fingers into a lump. Now, you want it about as high as the width of your thumb. You want some height in your scones, because that way that you get a nice decent sized scone. So now it's time to cut them out. So we get our cutter, and I'm just going to try and get 3 out of this lump. 1, 2, 3, and then we'll bring this last little bit together again. This is still on the principle of handling it as little as possible. There we are. That's about the size. That's about the same size. So we've got 4 nice little scones there. Okay, so we're almost ready to cook them now. What I'm going to do now is give them a little bit of an egg wash. If you don't want to use the egg, you can just use a little bit of the milk. But it is nice with eggs, so I'm going to just get a little bit of this egg and just brush it gently on the top. I've got a little baking tray here. Just going to put a tiny bit of flour in there. Put these on the baking tray, and it's time to pop them in the oven. Okay, look at these. Now these have been cooking in an oven preheated to 220 degrees centigrade. That's a hot oven, that's gas mark 7, and they've been doing for about 15 minutes. And don't they look lovely? Okay, so I'm going to put those to one side to cool down. And I'm going to whip up just a little bit of cream, because we all need a bit of luxury in our lives. Now, you don't need much of this cream, and it's very simple, just to whip it up. Give it space. I've just been whipping this for about 2 or 3 minutes. I want to just stop before it gets too stiff. There we are. And here we are, ready for our cream tea. Cream, jam, beautiful scones, lovely cup of tea. Please do this. Give yourself a little bit of luxury and treat yourself. You deserve it. We all need cheering up in these difficult times, so I can't think of a nicer way to do that than a beautiful cream tea. So thanks for joining me for this cooking session. I hope you've had fun. I certainly have. Join me for the last one, where we're going to be making some absolutely amazing chocolate fondant puddings.